Hi, I'm Sue Runge, Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I'm going to show you some tips for making 2 cards today. And if you enjoy my video, please show me some love by subscribing to my YouTube page and sharing my video. Thanks so much. So let's get started. So today I want to do some projects with the Wiggle Worm bundle. So let me show you the Wiggle Worm stamp set. This is a photopolymer set, and it comes with 25 adorable stamps. So you've got a worm, and then you have some insects, and you have different designs that you can put inside your insect, and then of course some verses and clouds and flowers and things that go well with the insects. So it is a bundle, so we also have framelets that match. So you have 14 framelets, and up here you have the framelets for the insects, and you also have a worm, and then we have a couple of flowers and some grass and a big leaf there and a couple of mushrooms. So a really fun, versatile bundle to use. So like so many people, I am really busy. I'm a full-time teacher and a demonstrator that's very busy with Stampin' Up! And so sometimes it's just really difficult for me to sit down and create just out of my head. So like so many people, I use social media as a way to come up with ideas. So I went to Pinterest and I searched for Wiggle Worm. And I saw this design and I decided I liked this layout. So this is a card by Rachel Rife. And so what I like to show you is how you can take somebody else's project and make it your own. So this is what I came up with. So as you can see, you still have the 3 bugs going across. And I started with just thinking, what do I want to use for this strip of paper right there? And so what I decided to go with was the Noble Peacock Designer foil paper. I just think this is beautiful. And so there are 3 colors here. We've got our Old Olive, Blueberry Bushel, and then Pretty Peacock here for this one. And I decided to go with the Blueberry Bushel for a thin strip on the front of my card. Now once I figured that out, I decided that I also wanted to use the Noble Peacock's rhinestones as embellishments. So try to get that in there so the light's not reflecting too badly on there. So these come in Blueberry Bushel, Gorgeous Grape, Mellow Mambo, Old Olive, and Pretty Peacock rhinestones. Well, that gave me the color scheme that I wanted to use. So I decided to go and focus on the Blueberry Bushel, Old Olive, and the Gorgeous Grape. And so here's how I got my colors. Now I do want to point out that I use a little bit different insects than she did. I chose to put this butterfly or moth in the middle instead of the grasshopper, and then I used the same bug but designed it up a little differently, and then a different insect there for that one. So again, her card was just kind of a guideline for me. I would like to show you how I did the coloring. So I did my coloring using Stampin' Blends. That is my favorite coloring tool. So I'm going to do the butterfly really quickly for you, at least part of it. I'm going to stamp. So these are photopolymer stamps used with our blocks, clear blocks, and there I have my first image. Now remember that when you're doing Stampin' Blends, you need to use the Memento ink because the Stampin' Blends are alcohol inks, and so to use alcohol inks you need the Memento ink as what you're going to stamp with. And then I'm going to come over the top with my detail. Just line that up. Photopolymer is so nice for that. So there we go. Now for the coloring. The problem is that the Stampin' Blends do not come in Blueberry Bushel or Gorgeous Grape. So I decided that the light Night of Navy marker matched the designer paper well enough. I wasn't too concerned about that, but the closest thing I had to Gorgeous Grape was Highland Heather. And so this is the dark Highland Heather, and you can probably tell that it really doesn't match Gorgeous Grape too fantastically. I mean, it's okay, but it's a little bit light. So I decided to play around with my Stampin' Blends and do a little layering. So let me show you. I'm going to start with the light Night of Navy. And when you're coloring, make sure you have a really light touch because the alcohol inks tend to spread a little bit as it absorbs into the paper. So just a real light touch. Otherwise, you might get more ink on there than you really want, and it'll blur all throughout your image. So there is the Night of Navy. Then I am going to layer on top of that with the dark Highland Heather. Now, using a little bit of what we know about how colors blend. So I'm coming across here. Now, this is making a nice deep purple, which is what I wanted for my gorgeous grape. And you can just keep layering more and more of that Highland Heather on there to make it a little bit even darker purple. So if I bring my cardstock in there now, I think you can tell that my blended image matches a little bit better than the Highland Heather by itself. And again, I can just put more, even more grapey, put more of that on there, and maybe just keep playing with it until you get the perfect color for your needs. All right, so try that out a little bit. If you have a color that you like, but we don't have a Stampin' Blend for it, play around with it and see if you can come up with it. So that's what I did here for these two that has the gorgeous grape coloring on it. Now the other things that you'll see in the card is the You Amaze Me. Now this is different from what she had. Let me put her back on here. So she had a whole strip down here. I just put You Amaze Me with the stitched rectangle framelit. This grass behind there comes from the Wiggle Worm framelit. I'll bring that back in real quick. That's this right here. And then also this little flower right there is this purple flower right there. So that's what I decided to do for my greeting. And then I just put the rhinestones on there that I knew I wanted to use as well. And also in hers, she used all rectangles across the top for her bugs. But because I chose to do the butterfly / moth image instead, it's a little bit wider, I thought it would be fun to make that a circle instead. So I popped that out with my 1.5 inch circle punch. Very easy to do. So the one last thing is, can you tell that I have an embossing folder that I used here? Can you see that in there at all? That's one of my favorite designer or embossing folders to use when you have a big surface of cardstock that doesn't have a lot on top of it. That's the Subtles embossing folder. And here it is, the actual embossing folder. Again, I don't really know if you can see that detail, but all it really does is put some lines in there. It makes it look like textured paper. So I feel like that just adds a little bit more to it. And so that's what I came up with for my card that I got my inspiration from Pinterest. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's move on to our next project. Okay, so let's get started on the second project. Now this one also uses the Wiggle Worm bundle, but when I sat down to do this one, I had an event in mind that I needed to create a birthday card for, because my granddaughter is turning 2, and so this is her birthday card that I came up with. So the fun part about this, at least I think it's fun, is that I have the grasshoppers here that are hoisting her up in the air. The birthday girl, hip hip hooray, it's your birthday. So I want to show you how you can do this with the grasshoppers, because that is a technique that involves the Stamparatus. So our Stamparatus is a stamp positioner tool. And what I need to do is take my grasshopper stamp and position it so that the flat side is up. And that way when I close my plastic plate, it's going to grab that stamp. And I need to place it in here so that it is about 1/8 of an inch from the edge in order for it to work out the way I want it to. So that looks pretty good right there. And I am now going to close the plastic plate. Sorry about the reflection of my light. That's not too annoying. Put some pressure on that, and then that will stick to the plate. Now, photopolymer is super sticky, and so I usually have to adjust my cardstock again after that happens. Now, you can also use the cling stamps with this. This piece is removable, and cling stamps are a little bit thicker, so you just take this piece out when you're using your cling stamps. So I'm going to put my magnet back there. We definitely want that to all stay in place. So the next thing I'm going to do, move this down a little bit so you can see, is take my Memento ink again and ink this up right on the plate. I'm using Memento ink again because I did color again with the Stampin' Blend. So remember, whenever you color, you have to have the Stampin' Blends. And so now I'm coming down, and since we put that in place already, it should be exactly where we want it. So just put some good pressure on that, open it up, and there's our first grasshopper. So the trick is, how do we get that reflection then? Because we have to use the same stamp. It doesn't come with a stamp of the grasshopper in two different positions. So to do this, we have to bring in the silicone craft mat. I put that clear up in the corner. And we're going to actually stamp directly on this mat. So make sure it's good and clean, and clean it again as soon as you're done with this. So I just inked up my grasshopper again, and I'm going to close the sheet, put some pressure on that. Now you do want to work fairly quickly here. So I am now going to bring my cardstock in, and I have to turn it over, put it in the corner up there carefully, put my magnet back in place, and then I'm going to close it again just to put some pressure on where that ink is actually on the silicone sheet, and then it's going to transfer to the cardstock. Now this is the back side, so that's not the side we want. We are now going to flip that over, and you can see that I have my two grasshoppers. Now the second image is always a little bit lighter and maybe a little bit blurry from that process, but I always color these images. And I think that when I show you the sample again, you'll see that unless you know to look, you probably don't realize that that grasshopper is a little bit lighter in the outline than the original one. So then I just took my Stampin' Blends and I colored the grasshoppers. Now for the ladybug, I used the ladybug stamp, and then I put some little hearts on there for her markings. And then I did use the framelit to cut it out. And then I attached her to glue dots so that it looks like my grasshoppers are hoisting her up in the air. Now the party hats do not come with the Wiggle Worm stamp set. I found that in the Around the Corner stamp set right there. You'll see the party hat. And so I just stamped 3 of those and colored them different colors, cut them out and attached them. Now, of course, my 2-year-old granddaughter is working on her colors, so I wanted the whole theme to be bright and bold colors that she could identify. So that's why I have different colors in there. And I used the Silhouette Scenes paper for the background, and also has some confetti. Now the confetti is also from the Wiggle Worm stamp sets, so I just stamped those in different colors for the background. Now the 2, you might be wondering, well, where'd that 2 come from? That 2 is actually from a paper pumpkin kit that I got several months ago. So if you're not familiar with Paper Pumpkin is a subscription service through Stampin' Up, and they'll send you a fun new project kit each month. It's around $20, and so I made the projects for that month, but then I had the stamp set left over, which makes it an even better deal. So I stamped with that from that set, and then I used the balloon bouquet punch right here, and I popped out the bigger. This is the one that fit my 2, and then just attached a little white baker's twine so that she's holding her balloon. Now, if you'd like to recreate this card and you don't have the Paper Pumpkin kit, we do have this stamp set in the annual catalog right now that would definitely work for a substitute, because you've got all your numbers there that you need. It's called Family Party, and it has all these other great words and phrases in there that you can do too. So, and a little gift there. So I think that if you know that you're going to have some big birthdays coming up that you might want to put a number on your card, this might be a good investment for you. Now these numbers are a little bit smaller than the one that I had, so it works really nicely for the smaller balloon, which if you look at the card, the smaller balloon maybe would be a little more proportional to the bugs anyway. So that's a great choice. Now the last thing I want to talk about really quickly is this frame. So the frame I made, I actually cut it out with the die cutting machine with black cardstock, and I used this 2 square framelets which I believe they're the largest 2 squares in the package. Put those together and run it through your die cut machine. And then I use a pine wood planks embossing folder. I don't know if you can see that detail or not, but there's got some wood texture on there for the frame. And so I just framed up the little cute scene. And there you go. That is the birthday card that I made for my granddaughter. So I hope you really enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, please leave me a comment. Thank you so much. And don't forget to put Wiggle Worm on your wish list. And also don't forget that when you order from me this month, not this month, I apologize, this week, you will get the Noble Peacock Rhinestones for free when you place a $50 order if you use the host code that I've listed on my Facebook page. So please take a look at that. And I can also put that host code in the comments here if anybody's interested. And yeah, so just leave me a comment if you have questions. And thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it.